If you had to battle bloodthirsty monsters, what would you do? Death is about to get you, and you'll have to travel around the world and beat 3 gruesome mysteries in order to find and kill the man that stole your humanity, using human corpse heads as meat shields, undead monster flesh, and silver bullets designed to fight werewolves. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the 3 horror mysteries in Undead Murder Farce. Misplay is a free-to-use loyalty app for those of us who love playing mobile games, with tons of mobile games. Each new game you play through their program earns you points toward gift cards for awesome brands like Amazon, Walmart, Visa, Xbox, PlayStation, and more. And the more you play, the more you earn. Over 60 million in gift cards has already been redeemed. Misplay offers a huge catalog of mobile games across different genres: puzzle, word, strategy, adventure, and more. So get in on gaming's best kept secret. Download Misplay for free by clicking the link in the video description or by visiting misplay.com/HTBA. Get 200 bonus free points for signing up today and use my code HTBA50 inside the app to get an additional 53 points, which that will help you earn towards redeeming your first gift card. Use code HTBA50 and download the app for free here. So help your loved ones by going the extra mile with your gifts through Misplay. Thank you to Misplay for sponsoring the video. Now, back to the show. This monster hunter has no idea he's about to go on the most epic adventure involving vampire magic, werewolves, and a new type of hybrid monster killer that the world has never seen. Shin'ichirô here is the last of his kind, a half-demon, half-human abomination. He spends his days fighting ruthless monsters like him in bloody MMA death games for quick cash, because he needs to find the man that turned him into this monster before it's too late. The only mysterious clue that he has to go off of is the man's cane. If he doesn't find his creator soon, his half-demon mind will turn him mad. One day he meets a girl creeping on him and he thinks it's just some hot fan. Ooh. But doesn't know she's about to change his entire life. The two get into a battle, but Shin'ichirô barely defeats her and asks who the hell she is, and he hears her talking but sees her lips not move. And that's when he discovers something crazy, this terrifying head. But she's more than just a cheap anime knockoff. A world-famous detective, Aya Rindo. She and her maid Shizuki have come to warn him that he's running out of time. Yeah, no kidding. She's just like him, but a different kind of monster. Sugata says that he recently started feeling like shit and finds out it's no coincidence. Aya reveals that his half-demon side is too unstable and will soon kill him from the inside unless he finds a cure or buys time. She offers him a deal to temporarily save his life, but doesn't realize she's just as screwed as he is. 6 months ago, a man brutally stole her body and left her for dead. Since then, she's been tracking him down to get her body back, using only the 2 clues she has to find him. He's a foreigner and carries a cane with the letter M on it, and was spotted in Japan recently. Sugoro's eyes suddenly pop out, and they both realize they're both looking for the same man. He escaped from his horrifying facility, but is now desperate to go meet his maker in order to save his life. But Aya warns him that this journey will cost him. As an immortal monster, drinking her spit or blood can extend Sugata's life temporarily, but if they don't find Mr. M soon, she will go and kick the bucket because she's on the verge of giving up. This means Sugata will have no one to stop his horrifying death. The stakes high, he accepts her offer, and they lay out the game plan and piece together the clues of their enemy. An old foreigner with a cane, European design with the letter M on it. But tracking this cane will force them to meet Europe's most famous real-life serial killers within the next few months. And they'll have to go solve 3 insane murder mysteries. Figuring them out will help them find their greatest enemy or die trying. Tracking the cane maker to Europe, they start clearing monster mystery cases while keeping their eyes open, and soon get called on their latest job in a town where Mr. M was spotted. 1898, Easter, France. The case: solve the vampire murder of this family. Victim: the wife. The time limit to solve this case: 24 hours. Beloved by the human town they live in, this family doesn't need humans and has no enemies until now, which means anyone could be guilty. They meet the family, and here are the potential suspects. Pop's goatee, eldest model son, second son blonde short kid, Raoul, and little kid Charlotte, butler Alfred, and the other human chick servant. Aya reveals her head for shock factor and they get to work. The father tells them that since vampire corpses decay fast, he already has buried his wife, but took a picture of the crime scene and gives them the details. 12 a.m. the family eats dinner, and by 12:30 a.m. dinner ends and family separates, and at 1 a.m. the father stops by his warehouse to get his gun and goes hunting. Doesn't see the murder weapon in there, and at 1:30 a.m. father comes back and finds a murder weapon covered in blood in the warehouse, and his wife dead in her work room, where she happens to build custom furniture as a hobby. Coming in, Aya then notices real swords hung from the wall, but they're slightly crooked. Interesting. Scanning the photo and crime scene, she spots crazy details. A calm face showing no signs of struggle. No screams or detection. The bottom of the chair soaked in blood confirms she died here. The body covered in holy water, and a silver stake covered in blood that was found in their locked warehouse room. But vampires don't keep silver stakes in their house. warehouse. The father says they killed a vampire hunter 6 months ago and kept his weapons in the warehouse. The killer must have used that stake as the murder weapon, or so he thinks. Piecing together clues, Aya can tell the killer was strong enough to stab the mother vampire with a stake and somehow masked their scent in order to sneak into the room. But certain clues don't make sense. Why were these two things? A coat, the empty bottle containing a tiny amount of blood on it, and a fingerprint left behind. And why is the corpse covered in holy water? And why was the murder weapon removed and put back into the warehouse? Who would do that? Aya warns the family that something about this feels way off. Humans can't kill vampires so easily, but holding a silver stake as a vampire would have left burn marks on their hands that would take weeks to recover from. So she checks out everybody's hands, and she doesn't see anything strange except one thing. Suddenly, Aya declares that this case was an inside job. One of these 6 vampires is the murderer, shocking everyone here. All because of these 8 factors. Why are there no signs of the wife waking up before death? Vampires are sensitive to sound and smell compared to humans. It's strange why she didn't sense any attacks. And 2, why did the attacker choose to sneak at midnight? Why not the daytime, when the vampires would be sleeping and weak? And 3, why did the corporate leave the bottle of holy water at the crime scene? It's not difficult to take away a bottle from a scene, unlike a coat worn to cover up blood from getting on a person. And 4, how did no one hear the sound? And 5, why did the corporate know about the silver stake in the warehouse? Somebody must be familiar with the interior of the castle. And 6, how could the corporate know the location of Hannah's room and exact time she was napping? And 7, why did the corporate pull out the silver stake from the body and put it back in the warehouse? Okay, before shit goes south real quick, I'm gonna solve this and other murders easily without using superpowers by using our 4 simple step framework, combining US murder statistics with human emotion, because the answer is actually so obvious. Let me explain. 1, I would first identify the crime scene area and set up a perimeter around it to contain important evidence even from the surrounding rooms and all the pathways leading to the warehouse, because it's always good to have more evidence to work with than less. 2, before coming up with an action plan, I'm going to be looking at whether there were any threats to the evidence that we should know, such as removing the dead mother's body, for example, would have messed up the crime scene a little bit and should have been addressed before moving on to our next step. 3, which would be to conduct a primary and secondary survey of the crime scene, including taking my own photographs to basically collect and document as much evidence as I could so we can recreate it later in a controlled environment without the annoying family getting in the way, especially if one of them here is guilty. 4, this would allow us to finally record and preserve evidence and quickly piece things together in a properly documented way, and not just like Sherlock Holmes on the fly over here, which might work for a bodiless head, but not for the average handsome stud like me. Especially when I could have told you beforehand that the family was already guilty. Here's why. According to these statistics, the US in 2022 had over 3,560 murders where the murderer was at least an acquaintance to the victim, if not closer, compared to the 1,998 murders recorded that were done by complete strangers in relation to the victim. And murderers being closer to their victims on average is due to the same reason that your aunt cried during the ending of Iron Giant, because humans are very emotional beings and often murder out of impulse, unless they're completely nuts. Have you ever tried to kill anyone in real life? It's really hard. The vampires here are basically humans with emotions from the looks of things, and this is why even without crime statistics or these people being human, in situations like this, the murderer would always be someone close to the family, if not the family itself, because families get messy. But this is why I here will actually solve the case within the next 4 minutes. Check it out. Aya carefully listens to the family story. After dinner, the mother went to continue her hobby, building furniture, with loud sounds coming from her room. At 1 a.m., the loud sounds stopped, just as the father went to pick up his gun and leave the house. She finds out that everyone has alibis at the time the mother was murdered, but this still doesn't make sense. Aya states the sound of a stake stabbing someone's chest would have been louder than hammering a nail. Someone would have heard it, and finally discovers 2 clues that will put all of this together. 1, the time of the victim's death actually happened during the time the mother was in the middle of building furniture, between 12:30 to 1 a.m. During this time, hearing loud sounds coming from the room would have been considered normal, and since the killer is one of them, they would know this, and the killer could have easily made noise without anyone realizing it. And 2, if this is true, it means the murder weapon left in the warehouse is actually a decoy, but the real weapon is not what they say. The real murder weapon, the holy water found around the mom's chest, but with no murder weapon in the room, it's obvious that the killer used a stake made from frozen holy water collected from the nearby town's church the family regularly goes to. There's easy access right there. Using the dead vampire hunter's stake that the family had access to, the killer turned the frozen holy water into a pointed edge weapon that melted when it came into contact with the victim, getting the mother wet. But now let's go back to the decoy weapon. In order to fake the crime timeline, the killer collected some blood from the scene and poured it onto the decoy stake left in the warehouse just after the father went into the room at 1 a.m., making the father and everyone think the crime was committed later, from 1 to 1:30, when in fact it happened earlier, from 12:30 to 1 a.m. Aya quickly figures out the new time frame and finds out that only one family member was unaccounted for just noticed after the murder? The middle son, Raul! Shocked, he calls BS and shows his undamaged hands. If Silver touched them, he would have had scars on them because Silver takes weeks to heal from. But Aya remembers what she saw right at the beginning. The crooked sword hanging on the wall. One of them had been recently used, and with it lays the final nail in this first murder mystery. Having only moments to cover his tracks after the murder, Raul cut off his fingers damaged by the Silver with a steel sword, and this allowed him to regenerate his fingers, immediately covering his tracks that he in fact murdered his own mother. Getting found out, Raul charges at Aya, but Sugaro stops him, and he admits he hates his family for being nice to humans and wanted to start a war with them and blah blah blah, whatever. Back to the main story. Completing the first case out of 3, Aya finally tells the father why they're really here. They're looking for an old 74 to 74-year-old European man with an M on his cane. But this guy reveals that someone matching that description did stop by here recently. He didn't give a name, but called himself the Professor and invited him to go to London with him. But the father refused because of his family, giving the gang their next lead. That's 1 case down and 2 more to go. The gang heads off to solve their next mystery, London, hoping to finally catch the Professor. But they don't realize they're about to fight a new type of hybrid monster killer that the world has never seen, and some new enemies. The team reaches and gets to their next assignment. Stop Lupin, the world's greatest gentleman thief. From stealing the most expensive diamond in the world to penultimate diamond. But they make a quick stop on their real mission, finding Professor M, and stop by this famous cane shop, and they steal their customer list until they run into trouble. Seeing the list, they order Sugaro to hand back over the list, just as both sides get stopped and arrested by the cops for causing trouble. In the police car, Aya kills time by casually telling this officer that these 2 criminals are actually guilty, showing off her detective skills, and the man from earlier picks up on it and is impressed. They chat and find out that they've both been hired by the government to stop Lupin tonight. What a coinkydink! And they tell the cops to take them to the future scene of the crime. Reaching this grand mission, it's not the Queen's crib, but a famous explorer's, Phileas Fogg. You know, the 80 days around the world guy. He is scared that Lupin will come and take his diamond, and then they meet an English inspector, Lestrade. Aya notices a strange man on the way in, not realizing this man will be the death of most of them tonight. And now they get a rundown of the mission, their teammates and their opponents. A letter was sent here by Lupin, announcing the exact time and date where he'll strike, between 11 to 11:30 p.m. January 19th. And this is who they're up against, the opponent, Lupin, and also Eric, the Phantom. They've come to steal the penultimate diamond, which is just a massive 80-carat black diamond, and the safe it's in, and it's locked in a high-security vault underground. The English police reveal that they've brought the entire Scotland Yard force, plus some help, and have fortified the surrounding area around the mansion. And then this guy Sherlock then tells them to seal off the water tunnels. But the team gets notified that more help will arrive tomorrow night to help, sending 2 agents from Lloyd Agency, designed to deal with monsters and creatures that threaten their customers. The 5th agent appears, Reinhardt, and 7th agent, Fatima Double Darts, and agents that hate all monsters, even the good ones. They head down into the vault, and they actually get told the diamond is actually synthetic, it's not naturally made, and it actually contains a mysterious poem about wolves on it. The filthy rich owner tells them the story about the diamond is nothing like anyone has ever seen before, finding it on his travels in southern Germany. It was made by a rich dwarf tribe that wanted to take revenge on the werewolves that slaughtered their village. They made this diamond as a key to reveal their enemies, the werewolves' hiding place for future generations, or so the legend says. And they used their skills to make 2 things, a gem that will never break, and kept inside is a pure silver safe that no enemy could touch. They finish hearing the crazy stories and now wait for the trouble headed their way. No one realizes that Professor M has just spotted his 2 favorite lab rats in the world's newspaper, revealing where they are, and it's right where he's headed to. Meanwhile, waiting for Lupin to show up, Aya comes up with a crazy plan to stop him, using this legendary Japanese outlaw, Ishikawa Gomon, aka, Japanese Robin Hood basically. But Sugaro thinks she's absolutely crazy. That night, everyone is on high alert as the mission locks down and prepares for Lupin to strike. Aya's team covers above ground, while Sherlock and his team stay inside the vault. The monster-hating agents, Lloyd's Agency, also arrive to demand to keep watch above ground also, near the entrance. Aya thinks they're acting kinda suspicious, but whatever, she focuses on the main job. Suddenly, a huge explosion is heard near the main entrance as the area gets news that the intruders have stolen some police uniforms, and the bad guys now could be anywhere. Okay, these guys are doing it all wrong. I would stop Lupin by figuring out his brain chemistry and relying on one of the first Korn films in cinema history. Yeah, you heard me. Let me explain. Lupin here is known as the Robin Hood of France, judging by his name, except instead of stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, he's giving it to himself, and he's like actually super rich. But his title alone means that he's not just a random thief we don't know about, but a famous one, and in crime, the more famous someone is, the easier it is to figure out their weaknesses, because it means more eyeballs have been looking at this person. This is why instead of just randomly randomly preparing for an attack, I would spend some time getting to know the psyche, the brain, the mind of Lupin. With what we got, this would help us figure out how he would likely strike. The psychology of someone involved in theft usually comes as a result of not having something or enough of something when they were young, if they're naturally envious or have the simple desire for power and influence. But this type of action can also come from someone with mental health disorders, or specifically from two conditions. One, when serotonin isn't being produced enough in the brain, or two, when the body's hormones responsible for helping the brain respond to pain and other stimuli is out of whack. Now, the chemical makeup of Lupin's brain makes it more likely that doing all of this stealing excites the shit out of this guy, especially since the public has given him a title. I mean, come on, it's like if you call Dom the writer the sexiest douchebag in all of Bangkok. You have no idea how much Dom would get off on that. And this means that our opponent is coming to fight us on his home turf. This is why I would change how we protect this diamond right now. I would try to change the rules of the game by changing the environment Lupin is forced to steal in. I would try to convince the owner to completely remove the diamond from the facility, I know, scary, and place it somewhere where no thief would expect to find it. And here's where my idea comes in, like hiding it within the owner's old school movie projector that he likely has and uses to watch 19th century films late at night. For example, like Fatima's Coochie Coochie Dance, 1896. I know, since no gentleman thief would ever bother to look in such a degraded spot. And if they did, their hands would be too busy to grab any diamonds anyways, if you know what I mean, wink wink. Inside, Sherlock thinks fast and destroys the vault's lock, preventing Lupin from entering from the front, trapping everyone here as well until the locksmith gets here in the morning. 2 minutes left till 11. It's Lupin's strike time. They brace themselves, and then a second blast is heard from above. It's water erupting from the breathing tunnel above and quickly filling the vault room, preventing Sherlock's team from securing the vault as they get swept up in the chaos. One of the Lloyd agents, Fatima, rushes down to help and blows the vault door, bringing the men and the Deathwater trap, but they might as well be screwed because they find the safe has now been stolen! And with no easy access to it underwater, no one can figure out how Lupin pulled it off. Desperate, the group focuses on stopping Lupin from escaping the island mansion and try to seal off the front doors, but the police chief suspiciously says they should first go warm up upstairs and regroup. Sherlock watches him like a hawk passing over this bridge, and he realizes something crazy. Entering the break room, he arrests the police chief and reveals that he is Lupin. He noticed his light footsteps when they first crossed the bridge just now, meaning the police chief's big stomach is fake. Sherlock reveals to Lupin that even though they stole the safe, the diamond actually wasn't in there, but he hid it in the real police chief's jacket pocket. Going to unveil it, he sees it's empty, just as Lupin pulls a double cross. Stealing the diamond last minute, he desperately escapes through the window. Running to meet his partner Phantom, he opens the silver safe, busting out, seeing Aya, signaling Sugaru. He comes in swinging, catching her and the safe, and the squad in full. Aya reveals she's been hiding in there all along, Trojan horse style. She and the diamond owner set this plan up from the start. Lupin declares they will fight them, but Phantom bails immediately, pissing Lupin off while maid Shizuki goes after him. Lupin takes off his gentleman coat, and that's when the Lloyd agent enters. An explosion rumble is heard again. Lupin looks at them this time in concern and says he didn't cause that, not realizing more people have entered the mansion. The professor and the magician man Alistair and Carmilla, and Jack the Ripper and Monster. They've just murdered half the police force. Back to Sugaru's location. Meanwhile, these three get into a whole three-way thing. Wink wink. But they end up deciding to team up before that for just a real quick second and stop the true monster hater, this guy, the Lloyd agent, and sneakily incapacitate him. Sherlock's crew finally reaches Aya's location and warn them of new unknown enemies that have come. Rushing to check out the situation, they see all the horror and their opponent. He says he isn't running the show, but a man named the Professor is, shocking Aya that she's so close. He fires a blow dart, but Sherlock notices he's firing his weapon through his thumbs, and they quickly plan an attack. While Shizuki is on her own journey, losing Phantom somehow, she runs into one of the Professor's creatures, this vampire Carmilla, but quickly loses and is out of the count. Great. Meanwhile, Aya and Sherlock take on Alistair. Aya talks to him to distract him, and finding out the Professor has come to steal the same thing Lupin has, the penultimate diamond, because it's the key to finding his werewolves. Okay, in this case, these guys are thinking way too smarty pants. In order to defeat Alistair here, I would just use Watson as a distraction and Aya as a shield of meat. Let me explain, come on. Alistair is a power-hungry magician, but ultimately he's not anything crazier than what we faced before. This is why if I was Sherlock, instead of grouping up with Watson, I would work on splitting up first. This area is basically a museum, which means there would be a ton of hiding spots to cover as we both work to close the gap on Alistair from both sides. Being that Alistair is just a normal magician but deadly, I would instruct Watson as he gets closer to begin throwing heavy items at him to keep him distracted. His weapon being his gloves means he already has poor aim and wouldn't be able to accurately take both of us out if we came from both directions simultaneously. And then from here I would use Aya as a temporary shield of meat because like she's already dead so she wouldn't mind, and then we could use her to protect ourselves, further closing the gap, and hell I would even throw Aya's head at him and just knock the guy out once and for all. And then we would knock him out the second time for good. Their company is looking to recruit and combine the best monsters in the world, and that's why he stole Aya's undead body. He wants her immortality. He confirms to Aya that her body is at their base, but she'll never reach it alive. Sherlock quickly sneaks up on him and uses his weapons against him, incapacitating him. Suddenly another blast occurs from here. Sherlock recognizes who it is. Professor Moriarty. He's Professor M, his arch nemesis. Moriarty is pleasantly surprised to see Aya still alive and tells her body is being used as a sample at his house. Oh, and she can't have it back. Moriarty says he's now back out of retirement thanks to a new terrifying apprentice of his, straight from Whitechapel, a man who wanted to learn more about transplant surgery from him, and wanted to use that surgery on himself, artificially combining himself with powers of all the strongest monsters in the world. This will make Moriarty's research the most valuable in the world, and he reveals that his student is Jack the Ripper. He is the one who cut Aya's head off and took away Tsugaru's humanity in order to add to their powers. To their experiments, soon they will create the ultimate monster of the world with no weaknesses, making Jack the best test subject in the world. And he also has part of Aya's immortality powers, making her discover why they're after the diamond. They want to combine werewolves too and create the first chimera with Jack. Meanwhile, back at Tsugaru's location, the tough Lloyd agent escapes and everyone makes a run for the diamond. But that's when they suddenly spot Moriarty's worst creation, Jack the Ripper, ripping this Lloyd agent's heart out and knocking back the other one. And Tsugaru finds out who Jack is the hard way. However, he recognizes Tsugaru as one of Moriarty's escaped test subjects, but doesn't have time to kill him since he now has the diamond. Firing a flare in the sky, signaling Moriarty and all to leave. They warn him they will have lots of fun soon. Bye-bye. Defeated, Tsugaru's group after find out Lupin and Phantom have also escaped, sneaking out from the water tunnel below the mansion. And the silver safe is also missing. Oh, and Maid Shizuki also stumbles back getting her ass kicked, but she's fine. And that's when Tsugaru tells everyone that he actually still has the diamond and pickpocketed Jack earlier before he left. Knowing this diamond is the key to finding werewolves, they take a look at the cryptic poetry cipher behind it. But I already figured out the diamond mystery, claiming the werewolves are located somewhere within the Forest of Fangs. Aya knows Moriarty will try to reach this village before them, not realizing that they need to solve another mystery before he gets there. Whew, that makes 2 mysteries down and 1 more to go. Heading to southern Germany, they near a small village, Villendorf, the village of Howling, to wait for Moriarty's crew to strike. Aya gives her team their opponent's power stats. Wolves are beasts, but incredibly smart and good at hiding. They can freely transform between 3 wolves, human, wolf, and beastman. Whenever their body is covered in fur, which is 2 modes, their ability increases and skin becomes bulletproof. The teeth and nail gets bigger and senses become incredibly sharp. They can chase an enemy to the ends of the earth. In human form, they're pretty much normal humans, but says these monsters rarely go to human villages. But that's when they meet one of the village locals. He recognizes them as the famous detective group in the news and begs them to help his town, and they get a rundown of their final case. A little girl has been captured by a werewolf, and for the last year, every few months, one girl disappears in the middle of the night. Always in the middle of the night, and always when it's raining. And then the next day, the body is found, head and back are broken, chest is torn in half, and her hand was gnawed to the bone. All of them have been brutally murdered, and the attacks seem personal. The bite marks in all of them are by the same murderer. Their latest victim, Louise, was taken right before her 13th birthday, disappeared from her room last night, but this time it wasn't raining. The villagers thought the werewolf could be hiding in the village, since they had this problem 8 years ago, when a werewolf mother and her daughter were discovered, but died trying to escape. Aya's group then heads to the crime scene to look around. Left window locked, right window locked permanently. There's chimney dust in the room. It's a messy room, indicating possibly a strangle. Blood stains, but none leading to the window. But according to the family, nothing in the room is missing. They suspect the kidnapper snuck through here. The entrance is too small for a human, but the paws on the floor aren't big enough to be a werewolf, which means it must have been a beastman, a wolf form in between human and full-on werewolf. Being sick since she was a child, there was no way Louise could have run off by herself. Remembering the blood stains, she thinks Louise must have been carried in something, or else there would have been more blood leading to the window. But if nothing is missing, the kidnapper must have brought his own bag, realizing that this kidnapping wasn't just a random attack, but made to look like it, and it was messy on purpose. Checking around the house, the parents mention a hunting gun with some bullets that was stolen a year ago as well, when the first girl was killed. But it makes no sense, since werewolves, well, they don't need guns. Desperate for more clues, they head to the village chief, who reveals this town hundreds of years ago used to be overrun by werewolves. The man thinks, according to the legend, there is a village hidden beneath the waterfall nearby, where the werewolves live. Aya's eyes light up, but the man notices this. She tells him horrifying people are headed this way, and they must find the village before they do, showing him the penultimate diamond. She knows this is the key, but doesn't know how to use it. The old man is shocked that she has it, but strikes a deal with her. If she saves this village within 2 days, he'll tell them how to use the black diamond to find the werewolf village. So the gang sets off to solve their final case, not realizing that more new enemies are already in town. Okay, it is clear from the murder scene that this latest victim was special. Let me explain. I'm first going to talk to the parents, since they obviously would have set up the environment the victim would have grown up in, especially since she was disabled and would have naturally relied more on them compared to your average child. And after all the twists and turns, I definitely am not going to trust anyone yet. But one thing here is more concerning than the rest. It's noted the killer went against their signature way of killing, committing the crime this time during a day without rain, and went through the trouble of sneaking in through the chimney when they could have just barged in through the window. This makes it a problem. According to FBI agent and behavioral analyst John Douglas, when serial killers start committing crimes, if something doesn't go right, he's got to perfect the MO. He has to. The sudden ensuing change in murder tactics and extra sneakiness for no reason suggests this kidnapping was special, different from the rest, because the killer originally had no reason to change his tactics unless he actually couldn't wait to kidnap this girl before the next rainy day. This is why we'll first dig deep into this girl's backstory and learn everything, starting with the parents before doing anything else, and I'll split up the team, focusing on the village's social dynamics with Louise, her parents, and their appearance towards the village, because that is likely going to tell us the backstory of the crime, more than the crime scene itself. The village chief says werewolves can strengthen their bloodlines through selective breeding, each generation getting stronger than the last, and some wolves are now resistant to silver and holy water. But according to the legend, soon the king of werewolves will be born or is already among them. The last time silver didn't work on a werewolf he knows of was 80 years ago, including a wolf mother and a daughter that were discovered hiding in the village before the spring festival. The missing girl Louise was the one that discovered them because the mother werewolf mistook her for her own kid. Aya finds out Louise's parents don't really help her around the house, that she is very independent. 1 year ago she went missing for a day. It was really suspicious. But Aya says she's nearly figured the case out already. Suddenly these two agents blast into the room causing chaos, saying Sherlock led them there, and say the Lloyd agents here are here to help solve the werewolf case. But they can't kill Aya since they need her to solve the missing girl case, so the mayor will now show her the way to get to the wolf village. So what do? They join forces. However, suddenly one of the villagers is heard turning into a werewolf. Gathering around this woman, Alma admits she is the one who killed Louise from the village, busting out of the house and running away. The team rushes to go and catch her. Finding out silver weapons don't work, Sugaro gets bitten and maid Shizuki is lost in the process, falling down this river. After they review the bite mark on Sugaro and confirm it's the same mark as the one on the dead murder victim, confirming it was Alma here who is guilty, the Lloyd agents return and confirm they lost Alma's tracks. Aya tells the village chief they've technically solved the case and they've had a deal, so he reveals how to get to the werewolf village using the diamond within the sun and some other mystery shit. They figure out its location. Meanwhile, maid Shizuki wakes up and discovers that she is in werewolf village and has been rescued by these wolf girls. Seeing she's a human, they don't trust her and reveal their kind have started getting murdered recently. All victims killed during rainy nights in their human form, which means someone surprised killed all of them. She gets a rundown of all the victims similar to the victims in the human village, little girls. But before these kids died, they all get dizzy and confused before they got kidnapped. The killer has a gun and is very good at covering their tracks. The wolf girls reach their limits and tell maid Shizuki that she needs to leave, taking her out, but she gets discovered. With nowhere to go, she tells them that she works for an undead detective who can help solve their murder, and she is on her way here right now. But then they hear gunshot nearby. Rushing to investigate, they see the girl that saved Shizuki in the river, Nora. She's now the next victim. And it's not raining. Realizing Shizuki isn't the murderer, they let her help for a second. She thinks the body was moved here since there isn't much blood around, and she must have been soaked from summer before being moved here, since she is soaking wet. Analyzing the tree, she spots a bullet hole. It's still warm, but only one shot was heard. This confirms Nora here died somewhere else, but no one can smell anything. Unable to piece together the clues, the wolf people lock her up in the meantime. Back at Sugaru's location, they head to the wolf village but run into one of Moriarty's men, Victor Frankenstein. Separating them from the Lloyd agents, they agree to a temporary ceasefire until maid Shizuki is found at wolf village. She tells him the location and hands him the diamond to prove she isn't lying. Heading in further, they run into one of the girls who helped Shizuki, wolf girl Vera here. She recognizes them as the detectives Shizuki told them about, and Aya says she can help her, handing this piece of clothing to cover their scent. She sneaks them into wolf village to see Shizuki. There she gives Aya the rundown of their next case. With little time to solve this one before the wolves kill Shizuki, they rush to solve the final case. Investigating the area, they spot some blood nearby and discover a hidden entrance. This place is soundproof and scent-proof, which means no werewolves would be able to hear anything coming from here, making it the perfect murder spot. Following the trail, they find the murder weapon and realize Aya was shot here, half inside the pool due to the bloodstain around here, and also discover the victim from the human village, Louise. And then they find another exit from this tunnel, far away from the werewolf village, and run into the same human from earlier. Aya uses him to ask the human parents some more questions, finding out the village planned to abandon her when she was younger, since she wasn't useful and a cripple, left alone in the woods. But that night, she came back by herself and also exposed the mother and daughter werewolf pair 80 years ago. Aya realizes Louise was small, but very smart, and proved to the village that she was useful to them by helping them discover werewolves hiding within the village. Aya then says they must go back to her room to investigate the one big clue, Louise's bedroom window. But first they go to save Shizuki, and that's when the whole werewolf village hears another gunshot. Another werewolf has been killed, and the town suspects that it's Shizuki, so they go after her. Trying to escape, they come up with a plan. Sugaro takes charge and leads them, running into 3 members from the wolf gang, thinking he's the wolf murderer. Defeating all of them, he clears the way for his team. But Aya here discovers that Lloyd agents have discovered her village, hearing screams and gunshots while the 2 towns fight each other. Aya then instructs Shizuki to go help the wolf girls that helped her, while she stays with Aya here and wants to dig up Nora's coffin to check something. They split up. Shizuki reaches the village and sees her wolf friends getting bitten by Carmilla, who also shows up, and they do get out and she gets bested by Carmilla again, blah blah blah, not important, while the Lloyd agents fight another monster nearby. Sugaro shows up to help Frankenstein kill this agent, and he thanks him and reveals that Aya's body is still intact at a facility base in London. How nice. After After, the team links up, and Aya announces that she solved the case. There's one person behind this, just as the king of the werewolves shows up. So, very long story short, due to the werewolves forcing each generation of girl to breed stronger werewolves, Jet's mother escaped while pregnant with Jet through a secret tunnel she built, and went into the human village under a new identity when Jet was born. But 8 years ago, her and Jet's werewolf secret was discovered by Louise, and since then was trying to make the village not kick her out for being a cripple. She proved to them she was useful by exposing Jet and her mother. The human town killed the two werewolves, but Jet escaped, snuck back into the wolf village through this secret tunnel her mother made. Under a new identity, Nora, but not relating to her werewolf side and seeing the women being made to produce stronger kids, she hatched a plan to make both villages kill each other, kidnapping human girls so the humans blame the werewolves, and kidnapping werewolf girls so the werewolves blame the humans. And she also kidnapped Louise, who ended up helping her because the village treated her like shit anyways. And since then, they both look the same. She's pretended to be Louise for the last year in the human village while she plotted her revenge. But when Aya showed up, she changed her plan and pinned the murders on a werewolf named Alma, who was really just fake Louise, who was actually Nora this whole time. Since the bite marks on Sugara when this happened were the same as the original bite marks this whole time. After, it was her who saved Shizuki after she fell into the waterfall. Jet reveals she is actually the king of the werewolves and will now run away, but Sugara hiding down here manages to catch her. But Aya says she's free to go because she realized something. Jet didn't kill those kidnapped werewolf girls, but helped them escape from the wolf village when they would have been soon forced to breed, and used the human kidnapped girls as decoys with their faces ripped off. So the werewolves couldn't tell they were actually human. Knowing she's a goodish girl, she lets her go, and Aya tells them both the villages will continue to fight, but they did their job, and Sugara tells them he found out from Frankenstein where Aya's body is, and they realize they didn't really need to solve this third mystery at all, but they did it for this anime vid. So they head off to fight Moriarty and end this adventure once and for all. So guys, what do you think? Did you like the video or didn't you like the video? Let us know what you think about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And as always, don't forget to check out our How to Be playlist.